Softube's new Flow Mastering Suite is a mastering plugin unlike any others. In my opinion, there's two main issues with most mastering plugins. The first is AI-driven mastering plugins that are working towards an arbitrary standard that isn't necessarily perfectly suited for your music, and it doesn't allow you to really see what it's doing and tweak it to sound perfect for your song, to sound as good as possible for your music, to get you the sound that you're looking for. Plus, because it just does it all for you, you can't really learn from it. The second is all-in-one mastering plugins that are jack of all trades, but a master of none. They can sound pretty good and they get decent results fairly simply, but none of the individual components are really tailored to sound as good as possible compared to what you get in Flow Mastering Suite, which is all of their individual mastering tools laid out by professional mastering engineers that are pre-set up for you in the way that they would set them up depending on the genre and the type of music that you're working on, so that you can just quickly tweak them with a few knobs and it will show you exactly what it's doing, and you can get in there and adjust it further if you want to, and you can see exactly what it's doing so you can learn from it. Let's fast forward a little bit so you can hear the master that we're going to work on in this video so you can decide if it's worth your time. Check it out. So if that sounds good to you, let's go and jump in and take a look at this plugin. We'll do a walkthrough, we'll set up a couple mastering chains and compare them. And at the end, I'll go over some of the highlights and the very, very unique pricing model that they have for this. Let's go and jump in. Okay, now before we even look at this plugin, I just want to say up top that I am in no way affiliated with Softube. They did send me this plugin to check out, but I am not getting paid to make this. These are completely my own thoughts, and there is no financial incentive for me whether you do or don't get it. I just thought this plugin was really cool, so I thought you should know about it, and I wanted to share it with you. Okay, so the first thing you'll see when you look at this plugin is this preset chain across the bottom. This is your mastering chain from left to right that's preset up for you based on the flow you have selected. So up here it says Modern Master. If I click on that or hit Open Flows here, it's going to show you different options depending on what genre you're working on. So Modern Master is a great starting point for most genres. It would work in a lot of genres, but we could get one very specific like this song. I think Organic Rock would be great for. So we'll play around with that in just a second as well. And you could even set up multiple different mastering flows, A, B, C, and D. You could have up to 4 of these set up and compare, flip back and forth between them to determine what sounds best for your specific song. It's really amazing. And they change not just the plugins, but the order that they're in and how they're set up depending on the different genres and what mastering goals typically are for those genres. There's no AI going on in this that's going to be listening and detecting things in your mix. What this is really based on is more a human approach to mastering, where the mastering engineer you send it to likely has some styles, some typical things that they go to with their tools, a typical flow of the tools that they send it through and how they have it set up, what kind of frequencies they're bringing out, etc. And they'll tweak them, but they will have a starting point that's kind of their go-to. But you can tweak them just as much yourself. So a cool thing is with this plugin here, I have just one knob here that's going to tweak this plugin based on the main variables that they would be tweaking. I can see those. I could go in here and individually tweak them if I don't like what it's doing on one knob, but I like what it's doing on another knob. I can get very, very specific if I want to, or I can just focus on this one knob and just, do I like it or do I not like it? Do I want more of it? Do I want less of it? You can simplify it or make it complicated depending on what you want this plugin to do. Now, the first thing that you need to do with this plugin is set your target volume. That's very, very key. With mastering, the incoming volume is very important. So what you need to do to get started with this plugin is go to the loudest section of your song, which I think for us is around here, and just let it play for a second and then hit set target. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And what we want to see is over here under LUFS, we want it to be around -16. So let it play for a few seconds to make sure that you're hitting around -16 after you hit set target. If it's not looking right for you, you could hit it again. But what's amazing is it has set this up for us. We didn't have to do anything other than go to the loudest section of our song and hit one button, and then it automatically does it for us. And now it's coming in at the optimal volume for these individual tools to work and sound the best that they can. Now, let's go ahead and just go through each of these individual knobs and start tweaking them. Before we do, though, one other thing to note is what we're seeing on this screen here, which is either going to be frequencies, so an EQ curve. So if I play this, you'll see an EQ curve here, or stereo image, so how wide it is, or the dynamics. basically how much it's being compressed or limited at any point. So these, if you set this to auto, will auto change depending on which plugins you're over. So if I'm over one that's affecting the frequencies, the EQ, then it's going to show us that. If I'm one that's affecting the widening, then it's going to show us that. You get the idea. It's pretty cool, pretty clever. So I typically would just keep this on auto, but you could always change it if you're just wanting to look at a specific thing. So let's just go through these one by one. If you click on the knob, it's going to pull up that plugin for you. And then as you're playing, it's going to show you, you can see what it's actually tweaking as you change this knob up here. So if I exaggerate this up, you'll see that it's just adjusting my threshold for the low, mid, and low end bands. And really quick, if you're like, what am I even doing with this? This is a great way to learn these tools because you can see and try to learn what each is doing. So it says over here, mid band, low band. So don't just feel intimidated like I can never learn this, but look at it and say, okay, what can I see here? What makes sense to me based on my current level of understanding? And just try to make as much sense of it as you can. And if you were like, I have no idea what this is doing, then just take the very simple approach of, do I like the sound of this? Exaggerate it up. Do I like the sound of it? If you do, then find those sweet spot for it to your ears and just trust your ears and don't worry about any of this stuff, but learn a little bit over time. And this plugin can literally teach you how mastering engineers are thinking and what they're adjusting on tools like this. And eventually you could use a tool like this without this flow mastering, which I think is so awesome. Softube, don't listen to this part, but you're kind of working yourself out of a job the way you set this up, which I think is awesome. Eventually you could just have these plugins, not have flow, and be doing this all yourself, which I think is also partly their goal, and kudos to Softube for that. Okay, let's go and find this, what we think of this. So exaggerating it here. It brings the mids forward a little bit, the low end, like low mids, the part of the mix. I think it sounds pretty good. I think kind of the starting point, just like 50%, feels about right. Now I can disable it, just leave it off without it, add it back on. Yeah, maybe a little bit less. I'm actually gonna scale it back a little bit. That sounds pretty good to me. Okay, let's look at this master compression. So really exaggerate it here, and you'll see the threshold and the makeup gain adjusting as I'm bringing this up. So what's cool there is that it's balancing the volume, so as it's compressing more, it's making up more volume. So I'm hearing the effect of it, but I'm not hearing it add volume or take away volume, and I'm not just being influenced by that. That's very, very, very cool. So I like the fullness is added, I think. If I take this away, it's a little thinner. Add it back in, it adds a nice energy. Cool, okay, I like the sound of that. Let's go ahead and disable it. Yeah, that's cool. It adds a little bit of fullness. I really like the sound of it. Okay, sweet EQ. So if we exaggerate it, this is like a high shelf, low shelf, mid cut, so smiley face EQ. And I think it's pretty subtle. Yeah, we're looking at, if you look up here, 2.37 decibel boost on the high end, and all the way up. So even all the way up, it's not super exaggerated. And I could get in here from like, well, I just want to cut it a little bit lower than its default cut, and you could tweak it like that. But now if I adjust this knob, it'll put it back to its original place. Okay, let's turn this off. Yeah, that's nice. Nice amount of clarity. Okay, so the Chandler Curve Bender, this is a very, very famous tool that I'm not particularly familiar with. I haven't really used this plugin or the physical version ever, but the plugin version much. So I'm not super familiar with it, but basically we have left and right side, and it's EQ. So we're looking at a 3.6 kilohertz, 6.5 kilohertz and 12 kilohertz. So super high frequencies, upper mids and high frequencies. And then we're turning up or down the volume with these knobs here. So as I adjust this, yeah, you'll see that it's turning up and it's turning down the output volume so that, again, we're hearing what it's doing without hearing it add volume. If I turn it this way, then it's turning down at those frequencies. Definitely don't like that on this mix. I feel like this mix could use a little bit more of this. I like the sound of that. Let's turn it off here. And you can see this EQ curve shifts a little bit as I re-engage it. So when it's off, it flattens out up here a little bit. So I engage it. We see that EQ bump up here. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's a high mid clarity. Let's look at the widener. So really exaggerated here. a little hollow in the middle. Wideners you need to be really, really careful with. They can start to make your mix sound cool and different, but ultimately what it's really doing is just thinning out the middle and making the sides feel huge. In general, I say little to none. A lot of times I don't use wideners in masters or mixes, but a little bit can sound cool. So let's play with that. Somewhere around there feels pretty good to me. And I can see I'm only doing 11%. That feels pretty good to me. If I take it out, add it in. Yeah, it feels like the sides push out a little bit, so that's nice. Okay, let's look at this de-esser. I don't think this song needs any de-essing. It's pretty transparent de-essing. I think maybe a little bit. I don't even know. Let's just turn it off. I don't think we need de-essing in the song. I don't really notice it really taming the S's, and they don't need to be tamed anymore. Okay, let's do this low and high end trick. So the low end, high end trick, this is the pull tech trick, which is very cool. So my bet is what it's going to do is boost the low end and cut the low end at the same frequency. So imagine an EQ, we're boosting and cutting at the same frequency, but the curves are just a little bit different for the boost and the cut. So we just end up with a cool, like, extra boost in the low end, but we're cleaning up some of the muddiness that can create with the attenuation here. And then same thing in the high end. We're adding some extra super high end sheen with a boost, but then we're attenuating some of the harshness that we can get. Let's go ahead and really exaggerate it and see what it sounds like. Yeah, so that's exactly what it's doing here. So it sounds cool, but that's a little bit hollow. Let me just say for the record, I think very few of these you're going to want to do 100% on, but trust your ears, trust your judgment. But I think in a lot of cases, less is more, especially with mastering. But even the most extreme settings on here often aren't crazy, which is pretty cool. But I think I'll just mix it up so it sounds like we just noticed it. I think somewhere around there sounds good on the high end, but I feel like it's adding a little too much low end. I think I actually just want to scale back the low end. So this is where I could get in and adjust it further beyond just that one knob, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's listen to it off and on. Off. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, and then finally we have our limiter. Now, really quickly with the limiter, it's very, very important that you set your output gain to -0.3. Softube, if you're watching this, please, please, please just do this for us. There's no reason that we should have to adjust this, especially if this is going to help some people who are just starting out. This should be default set to either -0.3 or -1. Some people swear that that's important these days. I still do -0.3 and it's totally fine. But at least -0.3, -1. So select your output gain here, which luckily it is default selected on this flow, but we'll see if that's the case in other flows. But Softube, please just do this for us. There's no reason that I should have to tweak that. And what's cool now is that I can just use this to bring up the loudness to the level that I want. I basically have a loudness knob right here. So let's compare this. I've already mastered this song myself. Let's compare this to my master up here and see where the volume is set in compared to mine. So this is the flow master, and then now my master. Yeah, definitely louder on my master. Yeah, okay, so I definitely want this to be louder. If we look here, it's hitting around -14 LUFS, which is fine, but I tend to prefer louder masters. Nothing wrong with that. So let's go ahead and bring this up. There we go. Now we're starting to get some volume. And what I'm looking for is under the momentary. What I'm aiming for on this mix is in this louder section to be around -8 on this louder section of the momentary. So compare back to my master. Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's what I love about this plugin. My standard is always that I compare back to a master that I've done. to see if I like anything they're doing better in their master to my master. I've never found an AI tool or an all-in-one mixing tool that ever has beaten my masters, but I feel like just tweaking this for a few minutes and I already feel like this is really, really close, maybe even beating mine. I'd want to reference it against other pro mixes, masters, to compare and see if I really like the direction this is sounding, not just sounding better inside my DAW, not against real world examples, but in general, I think this sounds really, really good already. So you can stop here. If you want to jump forward to talk about the pricing, they have a very cool pricing structure for this. Definitely skip forward and watch that. But I want to go ahead and continue on with B here and create a whole second mastering flow. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this down. So copy to B, and I'm only really doing that so that I don't have to reset this target. So let's go and go down to B here, and it's already set up the target here for us. And now I just want to go up to the modern, click on Modern Master here to open my different flows, and I want to open up this organic rock one. Take a second to set it up, but you see these knobs up here changed right off the bat, so that indicates we're going to have some different tools. And you can see here we have different plugins through here. Some of the same plugins, but in different orders. And yeah, it looks like they're set up a little bit differently. So this is emphasizing different frequencies than the Curve Bender was emphasizing in the last mix or last flow. So let's go and just play with these. Same thing. We'll just go through one by one, listen to what it's doing, dial it into this song, and then we'll compare A and B and just pick which we like better. So really exaggerate this here. So a little bit of tape compression, I turned it off. So this is just doing a little bit of tape compression saturation. I like the sound of it. You know, it's a little hard to like really tell exactly what it's doing. I think the starting point of just 50% is a safe bet if you're really not exactly sure. I think for me, I like the sound of it. I don't want to push it too hard and maybe accidentally overcook it. So 50% where it's defaulted to feels good. By the way, if you ever exaggerate it up and you want to go back to their starting point, just hold Option on the keyboard and click, and it will take you back there. Let's go and move on to this mid strength. So again, this is focusing on slightly lower frequencies than we had with the last one. Let's exaggerate this up. And notice it's not doing the high shelf at all. It's just these frequencies here. It's a little bit grittier to me, as opposed to like the sweet high-end frequencies. But kind of like it for this genre, this style song. So a little too much when it's all the way up, but somewhere around there feels pretty good to me. Let's turn it off. And then back on. And notice how this curve just swells up right there. Turn it off. Smooths back down. We get less of that high-end upper mid crispness. Yeah, I like the sound of this a lot. Okay, let's look at this mid shift. Oh no, we're on compressor. Let's get the compression here. So we're doing very little compression initially. So I exaggerate it up here. We'll see the threshold ratio, and it looks like the output gain adjust. Yeah. So it feels a little over compressed to me. A little compression feels nice. Turn it off. I definitely like it on. Okay, let's look at this mid shifter. So, yeah, as I turn this is EQ again. We're cutting low mids, boosting upper mids a little bit. Kind of nice. We go the opposite way with boosting low mids, cutting upper mids. I like the sound of that. We'll just do a little subtle amount. The cool thing is I think it's still, yeah, if you look here where it says boost, it's really extreme. It's still only boosting 1 decibel, cutting 1 decibel. So it's still pretty subtle. But I do like the direction that's putting it. It's cutting a little bit of the muddiness. High shelf here. So you'll see that high shelf goes up in volume, but also in frequency as you bring it up. And all the way up, it's still only adding 2.6 decibels. So I think I like what it's actually doing all the way up. Here's an example. Already, again, I said I wouldn't do 100%, but I think 100% works on this particular tool because it's mastering focused. So 100% is still a very subtle move. 2.6 decibels. That's pretty extreme, but it's not crazy. So I think I'm actually okay with it. Let's take it out though, make sure. Yeah, I like what it's doing. It's still subtle. Okay, let's look at the multi-band compression. So here we have that same tool as before, but now it looks like maybe the high band is also engaged. It's really exaggerated here. Yeah, so you'll see these three thresholds are adjusting. It's a little over-contained when it's really exaggerated. Let's turn this off. Oh yeah, that's doing like a nice thing to the upper mid. Yeah, it feels good to me. I'm good with that. Check that out. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Okay, and then finally the limiter. So yeah, let's see. Oh, yep. So we need to select output gain here, and then we just need to turn this to -0.3. Again, you could do -0.1 if you prefer. And let's just bring it up in this chorus that we're about to be in. We'll jump forward to that. Bring this up till we're getting around -8 in the chorus on the left meter. Listen as you're doing this and make sure that you're not getting any sort of pumping that you don't like the effect of, the sound of. I tend to like the sound of a loud master, the feel of it, but listen with your ears and make sure that you like the way it's actually sounding. Let's go and compare this back to my master that I did earlier. This is my master. This is flow master. I think even maybe a little bit more volume. Cool. Okay. So now what I want to do is compare this to the original master that we had, our modern master. So let's listen to this and compare it up to the modern master. So we're on A here. I'm going to hit B. Oh yeah, very different tone. You can see the EQ curve here, much more upper mid focused. Go back to A. I like the low end of this one. Cool. Let's go back to the organic rock flow. Yeah, I think this feels a little bit more modern. I think that's a good name for it. Feels really, really high fidelity. This feels a little bit grittier, a little bit more organic rock. Still has some high fidelity sheen to it. I do feel like this one could maybe have a little bit more low end, just personally. That's a bit of a preference thing, but I could dial that in. Like I could go into this Chandler curve bender, and I could adjust the low end just on this frequency, or just on this plugin, and bring some of that back in. So you have the ability to get in and do more processing. I will say, quick note, is that you can't add or change plugins in this. They are preset, they're in there for you. So I couldn't add in now a Pultec EQ in addition to this to dial that in. It's a bit of a frustrating thing. They have said that they're open to making that an option, but that they wanted to start with these preset chains to make this as foolproof as possible. So yeah, in just a few minutes, we set up 2 different masters and then can pick between those 2 different masters and decide what we think sounds better. You could, again, do this for 4 different masters and really flip through several different versions of the same master and really decide what you think sounds best. It's pretty amazing stuff. So let's take just a second and talk about the pricing model, because I think it's really interesting what they're doing. The tricky thing about this plugin is that you have to have all these different plugins to make it work. So they are using a subscription model for it. But if you already own some of these plugins, you could actually subscribe to Flow, then immediately cancel. You'll get access to the Flow plugin, but it will only let the plugins that you own the perpetual license in to use. Beyond that, they're also giving you credits towards buying these plugins every single month. So as opposed to just paying a subscription and that money's just gone the second you've spent it, given it to them, they're also giving you credits back so that you could buy perpetual licenses to the ones that you like. So let's say you are mastering with it, you find that you're always using that organic rock flow, and you just want to buy all those plugins that are in that so that you don't have to pay monthly anymore. Well, every month that you pay, you get credits towards buying those plugins, and then over time, eventually, you could either just outright buy some of them and use credits for other ones. You could use Flow without paying the monthly subscription, but own all the plugins that are actually in any of the flows that you really like, and then you get access to all this and you got benefit from them by getting the credits from the monthly subscription. I mean, it's just a really cool model. It's a little bit different. I definitely read more about it on their website so that you really understand it. But the plugins that are in this are such high quality plugins. They sound so good, and they've set this up to be basically foolproof, where if you just twist one knob, it's going to tweak each individual plugin to sound as best as it can for your mix. It's pretty amazing what this thing can do. So I would definitely check this out. It has a 14-day free trial. Try it before you buy it. See if you like the sound of it. If you feel like it is a good tool for you to get a master, compare it to AI masters or masters that you've done with other all-in-one mastering tool plugin type things, and see if you like the sound of this better. And if you do, then go with this. And if you don't, then don't go with it, right? But it's a really cool plugin. And at the end of the day, your master is only going to ever sound as good as the mix that you're feeding into it. So if you're not getting mixes that you're happy with it, I do want to give you something completely free. I put together a 6-step checklist that goes through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have and how to do them. It's specific to Logic, but it will work for you in whatever DAW you're working in. So be sure to pick it up for free from the link in the description below. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on Flow. Do you think this is a cool plugin? Let me know in the comments below. If you pick it up, definitely let me know your thoughts. And if this video was helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time, I can